All right, and welcome back again to the Paisan Sports podcast. Now that we've gotten that rude interruption out of the way, presented by Elevation 5280 Sports. Dante DePlacido, joined as always by Zach Deal of What's the Deal Sports. So I've got to ask, what's the deal with the stadium situation? First, the Sixers are building their own stadium in Center City. Then, no, they're not. They're going to build it in Camden. And then, you know what? On second thought, we'll build it in Center City. And then, no, not Center City, not Camden. It's staying in the sports complex in South Philly. And on top of that, the original reason for building their own stadium, from what I heard, was because they wanted their own stadium. But now it turns out it's going to be for the Sixers and the Flyers, owned by Comcast. I thought the Sixers were trying to get away from Comcast. But no, all of this was just for nothing, I guess. I don't know. What is going on?
Yeah, there was a lot of hoopla. There was like protests that were going on with.
There was protests. There was
protests. There was different types of stuff. A lot of people voiced how they felt about it, and it was definitely controversial. I don't know if that's what led to them not doing it. Is how if they thought it'd be too big of a controversy, or if they thought the commute and the travel wouldn't be good enough, or what their exact plan was. But we'll only find that out until they reveal it. But yeah. It was kind of surprising. I was tailgating yesterday for the Eagles game, and I just saw like the update on social media, and I'm just like, what? Like, after all this, like I thought it was like a locked in thing, even though it was like a long time away. But then again, like you said, staying in the sports complex, they need to stay in the sports complex. Like, it's only fitting. Like, I was actually tailgating in the.
It is fitting. I was really coming around to the idea of the Center City arena, and a couple reasons why. One being I was never worried about the traffic because where it was in Center City, you could easily just get on the Patco, get off the Patco in Center City and walk a few blocks to the arena. I was never really worried about the traffic or the parking or any of that. And the other thing, I thought it would be cool to have an arena in Center City, like just in the midst of the city. I feel like a lot of major cities have something like that. I think it brings a really cool vibe that I was kind of looking forward to. I'm not really upset that they're just going to keep in the sports complex, but I was kind of coming around to the idea of a Center City arena.
Yeah, I guess it really just how you see it. I feel like a lot of the people that are against it too are the people that live there. You know what I mean? And just like they feel like it's gonna kind of go against what they have going on right now. But yeah, it doesn't really change my life, honestly. I'll be able to get down to games. I would have probably seen games at the new arena if that's what they did, and I'll be going to some games now. But hopefully the team stays on track and can avoid the injury bug like they've been going through. So.
Well, that feels impossible for the 76ers.
Yeah, that's inevitable every single season with the Sixers, just the same exact story. So Joel Embiid missed another game yesterday. They've been having to run Paul George at center a little bit, and he's saying that he's getting bored out there, which like if you listen to the entire quote and don't take it out of context, it kind of like, it doesn't sound as bad, but like when you isolate the quote, itself, like saying I'm
that's
on the basketball floor and you're losing games while you're saying I'm bored. It's like, I'd never heard of basketball.
Well, that's what pisses me off about the media is because then they're posting it on Instagram in real big letters, bored, and then in tiny letters of playing center. And people obviously never read the whole goddamn thing if something's in small letters. So then everyone's commenting, "Oh, how are you bored? Oh, this is my Paul George." Instead of just seeing like Paul George saying he's bored of playing center, like that's perfectly valid. That's extremely valid. He shouldn't even have to be out there playing center anyhow. But people just see the I'm bored because they put of playing center in tiny letters, and then Paul George is made out to look like the bad guy. Like I'm just so over it with the media as of late. After a whole season of all the drama and the nonsense behind Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni, should we put him on the hot seat if they lose this game and blah, blah, blah. And Jalen Hurts, can he really throw the ball? And taking clips from the Eagles and putting it and quotes from the Eagles and putting it all out of context. After dealing with an entire NFL season full of nonsense like that, I am just so emotionally exhausted and done with the friggin' media. I can't take it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see any Philadelphia media really drawing that quote out of context. I didn't listen to the radio.
No, I'm not referring to Philadelphia.
I think I actually saw it from. I think I saw it from Complex Sports on Instagram or something. So they're like a pop culture type media brand that's like more so looking for things like to stir content. So, but I don't,
Yeah.
I don't really read into the media. I mean, like it's like the certain people, and it's the usual suspects. If it is the media that create the controversy, that try to create the controversy or stir the pot and say things that just like are just negative, or they're over the top, not like won't criticize at all. Like like the two different sides of I'm somebody that's in between, that just like is a realist that just. I try to be more so on the optimist side, like things could get better, but I'll call out the real stuff that's going on instead of somebody that's, trying to stir the pot and make something out to be that it's not, or they're just like overly negative about the team when things like, they just throw stuff out there to create controversy. But
yeah. But anyway,
media.
Let's move on, though, to a team that is much more worth talking about. That being your Philadelphia Eagles, who just took down the Green Bay Packers last night, 22-10, and will advance to the next round to face either the Vikings or the Rams, depending on who wins tonight.
I got the Rams, honestly, tonight. It's not like this is not something like. This is not something that I'm like wishfully thinking, or I'm actually going to bet it too because I've been a little bit hot on the bets too. But I'm not like wishfully thinking for this to happen. I just think the Rams, when they're really clicking, they're honestly one of the most dangerous teams in the league. I don't see that as a huge threat to the Eagles themselves, but versus a team like Minnesota that's has some really good skill position players, but the guy getting them the ball. And listen, I'll tell you firsthand, I'm one of the, I think I said it last podcast too, I'm one of the biggest like Sam Darnold supporters because he was like my favorite quarterback coming out of that draft. And it's always a good story when somebody's like seen as a bust, they can turn their career around and have a career year. Like I root for guys like that, especially like the Baker Mayfields of the world. But Sam Darnold, he's still, I feel like in big games at times, he just gets a little bit flustered and he just doesn't throw the ball accurately. It kind of reminds me of like stuff that happens to like Kirk Cousins in a way. Like they the way that Kirk Cousins has performed at a really high level at times in his career, but there's been other times in big games where like he just like seems like he's completely flustered. The pressure's getting to him, and he's overthrowing receivers and underthrowing them. So I like the Rams in this spot. I think their defense is really rebuilt. They have a lot of young guys that are contributing. That they have like a bunch of rookies that are like 24 years old that are contributing. That is something that is going to come with all the college transfer portal guys. Having all the years of eligibility, we're going to have older rookies. We have one on our hands too, and Quinyon Mitchell is 23 years old. But the Rams have a young defense of guys that have really came together, and their offense is obviously really dangerous with both receivers. And I think a lot of people spotlight Puka Nacua as the number one wide receiver, but you got to remember how dangerous Cooper Kupp is. And Matt Stafford, when he's playing well, is one of the best quarterbacks still in the league. And they run the ball well with Kyren Williams and get into the end zone with Kyren Williams. It's not just like they run the ball. There's a lot of guys who rush for 1,000 yards and then have what? 5. Didn't Rico Dowdle have like one rushing touchdown on the season?
Maybe, not sure. But I do want to say, I do agree with you. Me personally, I don't see how the Vikings are favorites going into this game. I personally don't see it. Maybe because of the record alone.
I think the line
Rams
also
look
when
like
they had to move the game when the game moved, the line changed like significantly. So it moved like a couple points onto the spread.
Yeah, but here's the thing about that. A couple things
But
about that.
they were the favorite to open too. They were still the favorite to open.
Yeah, but a couple things about that. One, even if the game was played at SoFi, let's not act like the Rams have a huge home field advantage. The fans out there in LA, they're not diehard Rams fans. It's a lot of celebrities, rich people going to the games for fun. They don't really care as much. I don't think it changes a whole lot now that the game is being played in Arizona. But I think the Rams definitely look like the better team at the moment. You look at the Vikings and you look at Sam Darnold. You look at a small sample size of Sam Darnold playing in a big time game against the Lions last week, which was basically a playoff game in itself. I mean, and he just completely shit the bed. And if that's what you're going to get out of Sam Darnold in a big time game, then I'm definitely putting my money on the LA Rams, who ever since they got hot, they've stayed hot. They lost to the Eagles. I like our chances against the Rams. I like our chances against either team, to be honest. Like I've mentioned a lot of times on this podcast, the Eagles struggle against mobile quarterbacks, Stafford and Darnold. They don't pose that sort of threat. The Eagles, I think the Eagles' other weakness on defense, not necessarily a weakness, but they're not the best. They don't have the best run defense, and you saw it with how they performed against Josh Jacobs last night. And these are two teams that really rely on their passing attack, and our secondary has done very, very well all year. The secondary did great against the Rams themselves. Slay has a great track record against Justin Jefferson, if you want to talk about the Vikings. So I really like our chances against either team, but in terms of this matchup tonight, I have my money on the LA Rams.
Yeah, I like the Rams too, and I think it's at plus 120 right now. So if you want to hop in on that bet, do yourself a favor and place that bet. It might change. There's obviously going to be a lot of betting going through until the game starts tonight, but I like the Rams as well. I just think like I said, when they're clicking on all cylinders, like imagine how dangerous that team would be if they still had Aaron Donald. You know what I mean? We're like,
yeah.
Think about like how a lot of teams, even the Eagles had two legendary players retire. The Rams had a legendary player retire, and they didn't even skip a beat. You know what I mean? They still made the playoffs, and are just moving on to the next generation of players. So it's a good thing to see. The Eagles. Let's talk about the Eagles versus the Packers yesterday. I was at the stadium. It was electric in there. There wasn't too many Packers fans, honestly. And the Packers have a huge fan base. They have the biggest fan base in the NFL. And there was really not a lot of Packers fans. I did see some Packers fans, and there was a dude that was wearing an Aaron Rodgers jersey in my section that was just talking crazy and everybody, but it was more so like kind of lighthearted. Like everybody knew that he was like purposely like being stupid. He wasn't like, like stirring up fights or anything, but it was just like him just saying crazy stuff. But it was definitely really loud in the stadium. It was packed. Looked like it was a sellout. And I felt like the Eagles performed well. Their defense obviously created a lot of plays. I can't believe, you should have heard how loud it was inside the stadium.
Wait a minute. What section were you in?
207.
207. Because you know what? A buddy of mine who was at the game yesterday, and he went with he went with one of our buddies, a younger brother who's a Packers fan. I think he might have been in the same. I think it might be the same person. All right, so this is the view from his seats, and then if I go to your story,
I think it's slightly.
Oh no, you definitely look closer. It's the same angle, but you definitely look closer. I don't think it was the same guy. But from what I heard, he was getting into a lot of fights with Eagles fans the whole night. Which, you go to an Eagles game as a Packers fan in your Packers gear. It's what you
Listen,
expect,
I'm not going to be the type of person that says like, "Oh, you're going to Philly, don't wear your gear like this, that, the other. Wear your team proud and do what you got to do." But
yeah. But
if you start the
expect to get into some shit,
It's not Philadelphia. It's not just Philadelphia fans. If you go out in public and you start talking shit to random grown men. You know what I mean? If you talk shit to random grown men, or I've seen some crazy videos of like Eagles fans. I won't say Eagles fans because it was one Eagles fan, like an older dude saying crazy stuff to a Packers fan that wasn't even saying stuff back. So that's like crazy.
Oh, I saw that on Twitter. I didn't actually watch the video, but I saw he said some
that's when you're acting
really
absolutely
nuts stuff.
Yeah, that's when you're acting nuts.
We don't condone taking it too far or anything. But but let's talk about the game.
The best, real quickly, the best borderline trash talking but not crossing the line, but legendary pop culture Philadelphia video is the Go Birds video in the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, yeah.
That's my favorite video.
The Vikings fans like,
but maybe that's a reason why. Well, that will be a very popular video if the Vikings win tonight. If they go against what both of our predictions, and the Vikings win, that video will probably be reposted on social media.
Well, no, that would go against our predictions.
I know, that's what I'm saying. If it would go against our predictions.
They said with our predictions, yeah.
No, okay. But it was crazy loud outside the stadium.
That probably would resurface.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Well, I say resurface all the time just in the playoffs, but if we're playing the Vikings in the playoffs, you know what I mean? That's going to add even more fuel to the fire. But inside the stadium, the first play of the game, them forcing the fumble on the kickoff, I mean, you should have heard how loud it was in there. And then also first drive, being able to go down there and score. Jahan Dotson scoring his first touchdown as an Eagle, which was crazy to see. Another Howie pickup that's made a big play in a big-time moment. I don't take that lightly. You know what I mean? We had Jahan Dotson's first touchdown as an Eagle in a playoff game, and we had Quinyon Mitchell's first interception as an Eagle.
Yeah, he finally got one.
As a in the
not
playoffs.
Only did Quinyon
not only that, the Eagles defense finally got an interception from a cornerback with Slays.
Well, yeah, I was about to say, not only did Quinyon finally get his first interception, but after an entire season of no interceptions by corners, we had 2 last night, 3 total, thanks to the best linebacker in football, Zach Bond, who, I said last week, I think he's the best linebacker in football. He really showed it last night. He played a phenomenal game, in my opinion, even outside the interception. He even made a big play on special teams. He's just all over the ball.
Nolan Smith's been making plays on special teams too, coming down on like kickoff coverage in the wood the past couple of weeks. So
and Nolan Smith, shout out to him. He had 2 sacks last night. And the first sack, that was one impressive play in my opinion. I think it was like he got around that right tackle like it was nothing. But not only that, he took him inside, right? Jordan Love sprinted to the outside, and he was still able to chase him down and bring him down by the shoelaces for the sack.
And their offensive line really doesn't give up that many sacks either, and he hasn't been sacked too many times this year, and they're really good with pass protection on the outside. So the Eagles defense, the defensive line has just felt like it's gotten better throughout the entire season. Like if you could highlight why the defense has progressively gotten better, it's not only obviously because of how they've been clicking since Cooper DeJean went into the slot to really shore that up. And Avonte Maddox came in for a play or two, and he made a nice tackle.
He actually did well.
Yeah, but it seems like every single week, like if you look at the progression of the defense, obviously, like we just talked about, Cooper DeJean being added into the nickel was a huge part of their pass coverage, but also the pressure that they've progressively have been putting on quarterbacks throughout the season has been really impressive. And Jordan Davis has been playing well too, and his limited snaps and embracing his role with Milton Williams. They have a really nice rotation going on, and then it's just led by Jalen Carter, fresh off that rest from Week 18, just causing havoc like he always does, batting down passes.
Yeah, I can recall one play during that game where he just shoved the right guard out of the way and got right in.
He does that. He bats down passes. He gets tackled to the ground by interior offensive linemen and gets flag calls, and he knows how to sell it as well. And their defensive line's just playing extremely well. Josh Sweat, they're gonna have to make some decisions there. They got a lot of guys where Howie usually locks up guys during the season, and we haven't seen him lock up any of these guys that are on 1-year deals that are really performing, and it's going to be interesting to see who he ends up keeping, because we could have seen like a Josh Sweat extension, Zach Bond extension by now, maybe Mekhi Becton. There's a couple of different options that they could have went with, and they haven't done it so far. So I know Howie, and I trust Howie knows what he's doing, but I just am interested to see who they think are actually expendable to keep this team's championship window prolonged.
One thing, while you were talking, I just looked it up on Twitter because I was thinking about this during the game. I felt like we didn't see Bryce Huff at all, but we did see some of Jalix Hunt. So I just looked into it. Bryce Huff had 1 total snap the entire game. Meanwhile, Jalix Hunt had 21. So it seems like even with Bryce Huff being back from injury, it seems like Jalix Hunt has kind of stolen his job from him at this point.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not too mad about that. Honestly, at the end of the day,
No,
I felt like
I'm not mad either.
At the end of the day, I feel like that money's not really burning a hole in the Eagles' pocket, and they could, it's only a three-year deal, so I'm happier that it's not like a 5-year deal, and they're locked into 17 mil per year for a while. I think they might get creative, maybe possibly be able to trade him and just take a little bit of a loss next season and see what they can get. The good thing is Hassan Reddick from that trade still hit his snap incentive for the season, so they're going to get that upgraded pick. So they'll have that at their disposal. And all the other guys that they brought in the offseason have worked out. So, and they've had guys step up at that position. You would think with Bryce Huff, like they would need him not only being the highest paid guy on the defensive line to step up and play a huge role, but also with the injury to Brandon Graham, just the depth. And if you look at some of the previous teams that have won far for the Eagles, like the 2017 team, like they were playing like 40% of the snaps each. They had like
it was a bigger rotation in those days than it is now. I mean, talking about Eagles snap counts, Nolan Smith played 88% of the snaps. You would not have seen that from any pass rusher on the 2017 Eagles or even the 2022 Eagles. This is really the first
these are also
year,
young guys. These are young
in
guys
quite a while that we don't have a huge rotation. But yeah, it's because a lot of it is because of injuries. But Nolan Smith has been doing a great job at staying on the field for most of the game and still being productive.
And that's what the best part about it is, like everybody keeps talking about, like, oh, we need to get Jalen Carter a rest because we're giving him too many snaps throughout the regular season. And it's like, oh, we need to pass the ball more, and we're running the ball so effectively with Saquon Barkley, and we gave him a contract in the offseason, a pretty decent contract in the offseason, and he's obviously exceeding it, but we paid the guy a lot of money to be good for us. And people don't realize, like, this is just what it is. Like, this is just like how you have to operate, and this is how they win games. But everybody would say last year, like, oh, we need to run the ball more if Jalen can't see his targets, can't throw over the middle of the field, or Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis can't play late into games because they don't have any stamina or endurance to play late into games. And then you look to the next season, and in the second season, Jalen Carter was playing like almost every snap in games.
Yeah. Now, one thing I definitely do want to talk about, a very unfortunate injury to the Eagles, a guy who had a phenomenal year that took a lot of people by surprise, Nakobe Dean. Just a terrific year on defense. I think if it wasn't for Zach Bond performing even better, I think Nakobe Dean would have gotten even more notoriety for how well he played this year. I think he's that good, especially if you look at his stats. A huge blow to lose him for the rest of the playoffs. And going into that game, actually, literally going into that game, I was watching the game at my cousin's house. And I said, I think the Eagles' depth at linebacker is terrific. I think I even mentioned on the podcast last week as well, Orrin Burks, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. But apart from the fumble to start off the game on special teams, I thought Orrin Burks on defense, when he came in for Nakobe Dean, I thought he looked awful out there. It was like every time you saw Orrin Burks, he was missing a tackle somewhere. I'm hoping that with a full week of getting first team reps in practice, I'm hoping he'll look better next week, but I'm a little concerned by what I saw out of Oren Burks.
Well, I just feel like, versus a team like, obviously, if you're going to match up with the Lions, you can't be missing tackles because all of their skill position players break tackles. And if they're going to have David Montgomery back with Jahmyr Gibbs, with Sam Laporta, with Amon-Ra St. Brown, with Jameson Williams, that every single one of those guys has the ability to break tackles and run after the catch. So if they're the running back, get the ball in their hands and break tackles, obviously. So that could be an issue. I think they missed like 14 tackles, which I think the Packers' skill position players too are also really good at breaking tackles. Obviously, Josh Jacobs, that crazy run that he had yesterday was nuts.
Yeah.
I was at
crazy run, but also shout out to Quinyon Mitchell for saving the touchdown that run. Like you could tell, although there was a lot of missed tackles on that run, you could tell Quinyon Mitchell put in maximum effort to
their entire defense flies to the ball. That's what I'm not worried about. Last year when they had issues like in the Bucs game, it was more so like they would miss tackles in open space, and then there was nobody around. There was no pursuit from any of the defenders around them, and that's why they were just getting just boat raced in that game. So I think this defense really flies to the ball well. It's obviously a huge loss not having Nakobe in there because that's one of his best traits is tackling. He's like a traditional linebacker. He's a little bit like undersized, but he also is a short tackler in the middle of the defense. So we'll see. And a lot of people, not only that, but you got to think with linebackers, not only just missing tackles, but just a lot of people like to pick on linebackers in coverage. And if they know that you have a backup linebacker in there that might be struggling at times, then they're going to pick on you. If you saw the national not the national championship, the college football semifinal in the for Texas versus Ohio State, I think Texas scored 2 touchdowns. Their first 2 touchdowns were wheel routes to the running back out of the backfield matched up with linebackers. So that's what teams like.
Yeah, it could pose to be a problem, but I think Oren Burks.
I think the defense is good enough overall to the defense as a whole is good enough overall to mask a hole. They don't really have any holes, and they haven't shown to have any holes throughout the year because they have been relatively been able to stay healthy. Besides Slay once again going out in this game and missing some time, and then coming back, going into the locker room. I'm like, oh, what is this now? And then he comes back out and played. I think Reed Blankenship.
Yes, Slay went to the sideline again at one.
Yeah,
but Reed I think the thing with Oren Burks though. Here's the thing with Oren Burks, though. I have confidence that he can perform well. I think he's shown flashes this year. I thought he looked very good in the final game. But, obviously he looked bad last night. But I do think maybe with a full week of first-team reps in practice, I think that could really help him. And again, not to put too much stock into Pro Football Focus, but looking at it here, if his grades are high, man. He's got an 86.8 run defense grade, a 70 coverage grade, 83 overall grade. I mean, I think the talent and the ability is there. So we'll see how he performs next week. I do wonder if we're going to see Trotter Jr. mixed in at all. If maybe during practice it's going to become a conversation of, let's see, maybe they split first team reps and they see which guy they like better. Although I think they're really keen on Oren Burks. So, but we'll see if we see Trotter Jr.
Yeah, they like the experience level of Oren Burks. He played in the Super Bowl last year when Dre Greenlaw went down and played for the 49ers and a good defense. So he's got experience. Yeah, they had to test out and see what goes on. But I'm just, like I said, I'm not worried about the defense as a whole. I thought yesterday the way that they were able to create turnovers and get after the quarterback, even though their run defense could have been better and they could have made more tackles. But the formula of getting after the quarterback and creating turnovers was definitely one that they ended up with 4 on the day, 1 on special teams as well, 3 on defense through the air. And I think that's a formula for this team to win, especially the way that they control the clock and run the ball on offense.
Yeah, Yeah, it was a great
Well, what
performance
do you think
by
about
the
the offense as a
defense.
whole? 'Cause I feel like I haven't listened to the radio yet today, but I could only assume that
You don't want to.
some people
You don't want
highlighting
to.
the 130 yards that Jalen Hurts passed for. But I don't think, after the game, everybody obviously was memeing A.J. Brown with the book that he was reading on the sidelines and thinking that, like, it was like some form of him showing his displeasure with the offense of only getting one target on the day or something like that. But, he says it's for
Well,
him
I
to
don't know if
stay
you
locked.
saw Jahan Dotson's Instagram story, but Jahan Dotson disproved that. He posted a photo of A.J. Brown reading that same book on the sidelines during a game where he had 94 receiving yards and a touchdown. So, Jahan Dotson already put those rumors to bed. And you know what? I think that's a great, like, that's kind of how this team has been all season. And I think it's been great where when something like that happens and the media blows it out of proportion, like I mentioned earlier, I'm really tired of dealing with this season, but anytime this year where something happens, the media blows out of proportion, the rest of the team has usually been there to get the other guys back, and we just saw that from Jahan Dotson by disproving it on his Instagram. I think this team has amazing chemistry, and people are
Well,
just
that's the most
looking for
important
something to
part
read
about the
too
entire
deep into.
situation.
No pun
Because
intended.
if there was an issue, then we would want the locker room not to, fall apart because of that issue or anything like that going on. So if we're having players internally inside the locker room shutting those rumors down, then that's what it is. Before, there were certain situations that happened inside the locker room where they were never shut down. You know what I mean? And that's where they would loom and linger, and that's where the issues lie. But with A.J. Brown, they're just trying to create controversy. He's going to be judged on his actions real tightly just based off his career of the way that he's sometimes came out and said things and they've been interpreted the wrong way. But yeah, as long as the offense, I don't think, there's going to be certain games that play out differently. You're not going to be able to just control every single team. I think the Eagles are good enough where their defense locks in a team and they can really just swarm them and just like keep them at bay the entire game. And the offense can control the ball and not have to really take too many shots in the air. But there is going to be certain games where you have to, you're going to get into a shootout, and the team that they're most likely going to face to get out of the NFC is going to be a team where they're going to have to get into a shootout. So they're going to have to open up the passing game a little bit. But I'm fine. Like, whatever it takes to win that specific week. Like, if he's throwing for 130 yards and they win by 3 points, then I'm going to start nitpicking, you know what I mean? And start being upset about it. I'm like, why are we throwing the ball only 21 times to only win by 3 points? But if we're winning by double digit scores, which it could have been, 19 points at the end of the game with Saquon sliding down, which would have put him for over 200 yards that game as a rusher. Like, if we're going to have a 200-yard rusher, then I'll take that.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing too, is you look at Saquon sliding to end the game when that could have added an extra 7 points. You also look at the missed Jake Elliott field goal. So really, that's 8 extra points that easily could have gone onto the board, and then you're looking at a 30-10 game, right? So that's the thing with Jalen Hurts. Okay, and we've been over this before, right? Is he's not throwing it a ton because he doesn't have to, right? And this was a topic of conversation earlier in the year after the Eagles won a game where he didn't throw much. The pass game didn't really do much, and everybody was like, "Oh, should we be worried about Jalen Hurts? Should we be worried about the passing game?" Blah, 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 blah. And then the next game, Jalen Hurts came out. He threw for 290 yards, 2 touchdowns. A.J. Brown had a big game, and then he went into his press conference and he said, "Is that what y'all wanted to see?" And then they just went back to doing what they were doing the whole season, just running the ball effectively. And now, after some time has passed, now we're back to saying, "Oh, well, what's up with the pass game?" Especially coming off a game where Jalen Hurts played rusty. He hadn't played in weeks. He's coming off a concussion. So, of course, you're going to rely more on the run game. Jalen Hurts isn't going to look fantastic because he's rusty. He's dealing with he's coming off a concussion. but he has proven that when they want to throw the ball, they can throw the ball. The fact that this is still being put into question is just absolutely ludicrous to me.
Yeah, and the thing is, people have to account for, like, you can't look at and just take the yards for what they are. I mean, he also has thrown touchdowns. Like, I think in the Baltimore game, that was one of the games during the stretch that they won but didn't throw for a lot of yards. And people, that's what stirred up that was the week before the Panthers game, correct? The Ravens game.
Wait. So, I'm sorry. Are you asking if the Panthers game was before the Ravens game? I think so.
The Ravens game was before the Panthers game. That's what I was asking, because the Ravens game is when Jalen had like 130 yards passing, but he threw 2 touchdowns in that game. And this game, he obviously had that touchdown pass to Dallas Goedert, and a lot of the
2 touchdown passes in this game as well. And I even saw somebody saying, like, oh, Jordan Love played a bad game, but Jalen Hurts didn't play any better. Yes, he did. Yeah, absolutely, he did. I would much rather have my quarterback throw for 2 touchdowns and no interceptions with a low amount of passing yards than have my quarterback throw for 230 yards or so, no touchdowns and 3 interceptions.
It's efficient off low amount of attempts, and he's getting it done where he needs to get it done, where you guys turn the ball over and Jordan Love turned the ball over and he throws a touchdown inside the red zone. They get over the 50-yard line and they get into the opponent's territory and he throws another touchdown pass to Dallas Goedert. So if you're converting and you're efficient, and also that's not the only thing, just like I was talking about with like the Rico Dowdle thing that I said earlier, and how the Rams are able to like convert. It's not only that Kyron Williams runs for a lot of yards, he also gets into the end zone. The Eagles, Saquon Barkley has 13, 14 rushing touchdowns, and Jalen has like 15. They scored 30 rushing touchdowns 30 plus rushing touchdowns as a team. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, if you're going to run the ball that much, it's one thing to run the ball and then not be able to get into the end zone and then say, oh, well, the passing game needs to be elevated because you can't get into the end zone. It's like working to a certain extent or to a certain point. But the Eagles get into the end zone. You know what I mean? So it's not
absolutely. And shout out to Dallas Goedert, man. That was one hell of a touchdown.
The double stiff arm?
It was almost more like a triple stiff arm, because he catches it, he shoves the guy off of him, and then he stiff arms him once, and then he stiff arms him twice, and then he gets in the end zone. So he got him off in like 3 times. It was almost like a triple stiff arm. But yeah, it was one hell of a play. He just bullied that guy into the end zone.
He's like so talented, but he's like also in a way, like, I don't want to say expendable, but they don't really miss too much of a beat without him. But when they do have him, and he's like the 4th option in the passing game, you know what I mean, or the 3rd option in the passing game, like he's always making plays. So, and I feel like he gets a very very different coverage because of the threats of Devontae and AJ on the outside. So you're able to exploit those matchups with him. So getting him back healthy is huge.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but also just to segue that back over to Jalen Hurts. Nick Sirianni stated that was an audible by Jalen Hurts at the line of scrimmage. So, a lot of people talking negative about Jalen Hurts, but although it was a phenomenal play by Dallas Goedert, that touchdown doesn't happen if Jalen Hurts recognizes the blitz at the line of scrimmage, calls an audible, and gets it out quickly to Dallas Goedert. Once again, shout out to Jalen Hurts. I thought all things considered, he played well. I think Kellen Moore's play calling needs to be a little better. If AJ Brown and Devontae Smith aren't getting open much throughout the game, that's on play calling. In my opinion, I refuse to believe that the corners were just locking up AJ Brown and Devontae Smith because they were better. I would imagine that had a lot to do with play calling. And also considering Jalen Hurts audibled into a touchdown. I don't know what the original play was by Kellen Moore, but yeah. But there was one. Oh, right. Before I get into my meatball of the week, one thing I wanted to mention, the celebration after Quinyon Mitchell caught that interception, when I saw that live, I had no idea what the hell they were trying to do there. Turns out that was supposed to be Triple H's pedigree.
Yeah, that was horrible. I can't even vouch for that
It
or
was
be
terrible.
that is so bad.
It
I've seen my
was
friends
awful. I couldn't even tell what they were
that.
trying to do. And
Yeah, I don't think any of them are gonna be getting a
Triple H
call
went
from
on.
the WWE anytime soon. I'm
No.
surprised, honestly, with how bad that was. That like you saw the Triple H tweet about it, like how he was.
Yeah, that's what I was about to mention. He
exactly
said,
what he
"This is
said,
why we
but
tell people don't try it at home."
yeah, but yeah, it was lighthearted.
Um,
They had good celebrations. They also had the Quinyon Mitchell finger wag celebration. That's probably going to become one of the
yeah.
dances everybody starts doing. And yeah, Slay made a huge. That was a crazy play to see in person too, because like you saw that ball go up on the sidelines, and you know Jordan Love's got a really nice arm. And at times, like one thing about Slay is he's like really solid in coverage, but he'll just have like one play every so often where someone just gets behind him and he's like just trailing, and he just can't get there like quick enough. Like he won't let the person run past him for a touchdown, but he'll be getting there and making the tackle as the receiver catches the ball. So for him to get underneath that, it was an underthrown ball a little bit, but it was still a phenomenal play
He
by
looked
Slay.
surprised that it landed into his arms. Like when you watch the replay in slow motion, he had his arms up, and then the ball kind of just lands into his like left elbow, and he just has like a look on his face, like he was surprised he caught it, which was kind of funny.
He's
But
somebody that wears his emotions on his sleeves too. Like you always just know how he's feeling internally with how he reacts to things. So, but
yeah,
I think a lot of people are trying to run him out of town, and there was no reason to. Like I think this defense is different without the veteran leadership of Slay. At times, he might go into Micah Parsons' podcast, and people see the displeasure. But I think he's just a fun-hearted, lighthearted guy. CJ Gardner Johnson's dancing throughout every single break in the stadium when they're playing music, just bringing the energy to the defense, all the plays that he makes on the ball. And this team, with all the varying difference, there are so many young guys with different types of backgrounds, with being different levels of draft picks and different resources spent to get them onto the Eagles, and to see the way that they're all clicking at once and how well this defense has came together with an odd cast of characters has just really been fun to watch.
Yeah, and actually before the Meatball Week, one other funny moment I just wanted to shout out was after after the flag was thrown for unnecessary roughness on the defense against Saquon Barkley when they shoved him to the ground after the play was over. Him standing behind the line just like for a good 20 seconds was absolutely hysterical. That was great. I thought, this team, they look like they're just having fun out there playing with each other, which is really what the kind of team chemistry you want to see. But anyway, it is now time for my Meatball of the Week. And my Meatball of the Week is actually a former Eagle, Dicker the kicker, Cameron Dicker. In the Chargers playoff game, after his field goal attempt got blocked and went shooting up in the air, coming down right for him instead of trying to catch it he goes to bat it down as if it's like an incomplete pass that's up in the air. He tries to bat it down like that's going to do anything besides give the opposing team a chance to recover the ball and run with it. Really screwed his team over there. I hate to say it for former Eagle, but Cameron Dicker, you are my Meatball of the Week.
I have two things to say about that. One, I'm surprised that Jake Elliott hasn't been a nominee for Meatball of the Week for our podcast at any point this season. But also, two, with Cameron Dicker, was that not like the craziest? I don't know if you're watching that game live, but that 4-play sequence of what transpired.
I didn't see all of that. I just saw it on Saturday. I saw the slate of games.
So this is what happened.
I saw Chargers versus Texans, and I saw Ravens versus Steelers, and I was like, I'm just gonna skip over Chargers versus Texans. Who the hell wants to watch that? Glad I didn't watch it, but go ahead, explain.
So Chargers versus Texans, the Chargers were up 6-0, then the Texans started roaring back. So the Chargers were down big, and like everything, the sky's falling for the Chargers at the moment. They have an unblocked sack, lose 10 yards. unblocked sack for another 10-yard loss on second down. 86-yard touchdown to Lad McConkey in like triple coverage on 3rd and 20. That was the third play.
I did
and then
see
the
that.
fourth play
Yeah.
was the 2-point play where then they lost 2 points on that play. So they unblocked sack, 86-yard touchdown, and then the kicker swatting the ball down on the on the block kick. So it was the wild four-play sequence of the football season so far that we've seen. But if we're going to be speaking around the league, before we get out of here, if we're going to be speaking around the league, and I want to just bring up one Phillies topic real quickly before we get out of here. But we're speaking around the league.
My God, Meatball of the Week, dude! You know who it should have? You know, my Meatball of the Week should have been. Sorry, I just thought of it because you brought up the Phillies. I don't know if you were about to say the same guy I'm thinking of, but I was going to say Bryce Harper, who's been posting recipe videos, looking like he hasn't slept in a month. That should have been my Meatball.
Yeah, those videos were. Yeah, I saw a picture of him recently, and it was looking a little strange. But everybody's on the Cooking with Kaya wave now and posting the recipe videos and all that stuff. But I lost my train of thought when you cut me off.
Yeah, sorry. It just.
Oh no, talking about around the league. Around the league, we got the last 8 teams in the NFL left. I don't know if we expected Washington to get to this point. I was actually going to bet on the Bucks, and I held off, and I would have lost my money. So I was happy that I didn't do that.
Well, they got lucky again, man.
Washington now, I'm starting to believe that they might be on a special run this year, and they, could possibly get the Eagles a home playoff game if they end up upsetting the Lions. I'm not saying that it's going to happen. The Lions are obviously one of the best teams in the NFL this year. But if we're looking around the league with the teams that are left and knowing the poll and maybe some upsets or teams that are eliminated already that you thought would have made it further, how do you think it's going to stack up, and who do you think the Eagles stack up the best with, and who would give the Eagles the best game with the remaining teams left in the playoffs?
Well, we're not. I don't really want to.
We have one game left. If I want to be corrected, we have one game left tonight.
Yeah, I don't really want us to get ahead of ourselves here because still got to win next week. But I'll definitely be rooting for the Commanders against the Lions. For 2 reasons. One, I still want to see the Commanders in the playoffs. I still want our revenge after all that crap they were talking after they ran away with a victory against Kenny Pickett. So I want to see the Commanders in the playoffs. So I'll be rooting for them to beat the Lions. That's reason number 1. And reason number 2, if we play the Commanders, then we get to play at home instead of going on the road to Detroit. So I will be rooting for the Commanders. I hope we do see the Commanders in the NFC Championship game. So that's what I want to see, definitely. I still like our chances against the Lions. I think the Lions will easily be our toughest game of the season so far. Easily. They're a very, very good team, but I still think we have a good chance to win if we play the Lions. But I definitely want to bring the Commanders back to the link so we can get our revenge.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good game versus the Commanders too. I think that would be exciting for the NFL for like 2 divisional teams to match up in the NFC Championship, especially with the team that just look at some of these teams and the impact that the young players inside of like the top 5 that have made. Like the first year that the Bengals drafted Jamar Chase 5th overall, they were in the Super Bowl. Aiden Hutchinson was the 2nd overall pick only a couple years ago, and you saw how quickly the Lions are like a top-tier team in the NFL, playing in the NFC Championship with him last season, and possibly playing further on with him this year. And Jaden Daniels being the 2nd overall pick, and then immediately taking his team to one of the last 4 teams standing in the NFC. So that just shows you the rookies this year have really made an impact. And just over the past couple of recent years, rookies and young players have really taken the league by storm and have really, I felt like before championship teams were a lot of veteran guys, and their top performers weren't just the young guys just like bursting out, but a lot of these teams, the top of their rosters are composed of guys that have not too much experience in the NFL, but are really high level players. But I'm rooting for Washington as well. The Eagles get a home playoff game if that's the case, if they can handle business this week. I think the Lions are a really good team, but susceptibility at times, like I feel like Jared Goff can turn the ball over a little bit. It didn't hurt him versus Minnesota in the last game of the regular season, but they should have lost that game to the Texans earlier this year where he turned the ball over a bunch and they ended up coming back and winning. So I think the Washington Commanders actually have a chance in this game, and I like our chances versus Washington in Philly. It would be a different story if Washington, for whatever reason, was like the 1 seed and the Eagles were the wild card. I would actually be a little bit nervous, like playing this Washington team in Washington in the playoffs, but that's obviously not likely. So I think the Eagles having a home field advantage at the link is huge and crucial. I think the Rams are still dangerous. They end up winning tonight. And the Vikings, even with me saying that Sam Darnold, at times, I feel like he gets a little bit flustered. I do think that he can also rise to the occasion. They have such good skill position players. We saw how good Aaron Jones was in the playoffs last year, too, for the Packers. He was like single-handedly like carrying their offense at times, and he created the play action that they were able to get all those big passing plays going on with Jordan Love. So, yeah, I like our chances versus every team left in the NFC. Hopefully the path goes through trying to play Washington, but if they have to go to Detroit, I'm also confident in that game. But I think, like I said before, it's going to end up being a shootout, and this offense is going to have to carry more weight than they've had in previous weeks.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think they're capable of it. But we will see how things shake up.
One last thing. Jeff Hoffman signs a contract with the team that drafted him. That's a guy that they lose in the bullpen. We thought that he was pretty much gone for the Phillies since they didn't sign him for so long, and he's been a free agent for so long, and it turned into 2025 him being a free agent still. And he goes back to the Blue Jays. So, any thoughts on that? Also, the contract.
Yeah, not thrilled.
3 years, $33 million. Do you think that was doable?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, definitely. I definitely think we should have kept him around. Like I said, I'm just really fed up with whatever the hell the Eagles front office has been up to this offseason. And those are my thoughts.
The Phillies, you mean?
What did I say?
You said the Eagles. I was like, you're fed up. Like you might.
Yeah. Phillies. No,
what are you watching?
No, I'll never be fed up with Howie.
Were you the one talking about it on the podcast? Or were you the one talking about it on the podcast, or was I think you might have brought it up, or was like I was having a conversation with somebody else, and they're talking about I just started week 1 of the NFL. Or season 1 of the NFL, and they were like acting like it was like a TV series, and they were just like rewatching every game, and they were like just discrediting like live NFL. And their people are like, "Yo, are you watching 2024?" Like, no, I'm on like 1972.
Yeah, no, I that wasn't me, but I've seen people make that joke before.
Yeah, that's funny, but yeah, we'll be back next week. Hopefully the Sixers get healthy and can stay on a playoff run, a playoff course. We don't know. The trade deadline's coming up. They're going to have to get a backup center because Andre Drummond's been hurt pretty much the entire year. And Joel obviously misses games himself, and we don't want Paul George running center. Yabuselli's not a center himself, and they already have trouble with the 4 position. So if you have trouble with the 4 position and both your big men are out, then I feel like you're going to have trouble with the 5 position. So maybe they upgrade that, but we'll see when that happens around the trade deadline. Hopefully we're celebrating an Eagles victory. It's going to be Sunday, 3 p.m. I'm happy that it's on Sunday too. Are you happy? Like, do you like the Saturday games? Like, would you be locked in for an Eagles Saturday playoff game as you were as if it was on a Sunday? Or
I would still be as locked in, but I do prefer it on Sunday. Sunday is for football. You know, it's embedded in your brain. Sunday football, and also happy for my buddy Josh, who he works on Saturdays, so he gets to watch the game because it's on Sunday now. So happy for him. So yeah, I think, and there's a lot of other people who also work on Saturdays, but a much higher amount of people are off on Sunday. So I think it's a better day for football.
Yeah, it just feels traditional too for NFL football. Like, I hate the college football schedule. I'm wearing my Notre Dame stuff right now, repping them. Actually, get it in the way right there. But like the college football schedule.
Oh yeah, shout out to Notre Dame, by the way. Shout out Notre Dame. I really want to see Penn State lose, and Notre Dame got done. So shout out to Notre Dame.
you're in the realm with me too of not even being like a Notre Dame fan, because usually like the Notre Dame fans are the ones that in the tri-state area are the ones that beef with Penn State fans the most, because it's like those are like the two most popular teams around. But you're a tri-state area Penn State hater, just like I am. So
I hate Penn State because of my brother, who's a Cowboys fan, but also a diehard Penn State fan. So I started rooting against Penn State to spite him. Started rooting for Michigan to spite him. So now I just naturally
Penn State's the Dallas
hate
Cowboys
Penn
of the
State.
NFL. Or Penn State's the Dallas Cowboys of college football. They're always like ranked.
I would argue Notre Dame is. I would actually argue Notre Dame is. A lot of front runner fans because they used to be great. Now they stink. They don't stink this year, but for a long time they did stink.
We've made the.
I just said they don't stink this year, except for this year. But
except for this year, they've made the playoffs Notre Dame, the Dallas
Cowboys of the college football.
I don't know.
Anyway, let's not dive into this.
No, I'm not. Last thing, you're not gonna get off the hook for saying Notre Dame stinks when they made the playoffs 3 times since it's actually been a thing. So, and they're in the national championship this year. So I don't want to hear it. They have.
I said besides this year, Jesus.
They get to the national championship.
You're treating me like the media treats AJ Brown.
Nah.
Or Paul George.
Get out of here, pal. All right, but thank you guys for tuning in to episode 81 of the Paisan Sports Podcast. We'll be back next week, hopefully celebrating an Eagles playoff victory and celebrating the Eagles playing at the Link in the NFC Championship. So we'll be back then.